Batman Earth 1 is the greatest Batman story that's ever been told. It's the first in a 3-part series, and it's basically standalone. It's in its own universe. But what this does is this opens up with Batman basically appearing to be incompetent. And it's not because he's completely incompetent, it's because he's effectively new, right? Just kind of learning how to be Batman for the very first time. So the gun he uses for his grappling hook basically malfunctions. He lunges like across roofs while he's chasing after this guy. He ends up missing his grip. He tries to grab onto something, that doesn't work, and then he just smashes into the ground. But then it jumps back and it focuses on the origin of Batman to a degree. Now, not all of it we need to cover. You guys know Bruce Wayne's parents get shot and he ultimately becomes Batman. What it does do though, is it does introduce Alfred Pennyworth in a way that none of you would expect. You guys know Alfred Pennyworth as the kindly butler of Batman that took care of him after the Waynes had died and he'd been the butler for the family for some number of years. That's not the case here. Alfred Pennyworth is pretty hardcore, right? He's actually a mercenary, or at least a former mercenary, and seemingly he has a mercenary history with Thomas Wayne. This story doesn't go a whole lot into the relationship between the two as far as their mercenary and seemingly military history go. Future volumes actually take care of that. What is important is that Alfred and Thomas are very old friends, and Alfred is brought on not as a butler, but as somebody to oversee the security detail of Thomas Wayne because he's running for mayor. He's received a number of death threats, and some of those are believed to be coming from his opposition, the person running for mayor next to him. But of course, what we end up finding out here is that it's a Wayne tradition for Thomas, Martha, and Bruce to go out every week and to see something at the theater. And it's a tradition that Thomas refuses to let go of. So much so that Thomas tells Alfred that his job as the head of his security detail won't really begin to take over until Thomas ends up winning the mayoral position. Now, we're not really given a whole lot of context here, but seemingly Thomas is incredibly popular among the citizens of Gotham, just due to the fact that he has such a forward-thinking mindset. And so it kind of ties into a lot of the different depictions of Thomas Wayne that we've seen over the years in different forms of media, the movies and TV shows and so on. The guy who's actually looking out for the betterment of Gotham and trying to make Gotham better. What ends up happening is exactly as you would expect, that they end up leaving the theater, everything goes sideways, and Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot. Now, following that, again, breaking away from the Alfred that you guys are used to, he has no desire to raise Bruce Wayne. He has no desire to do that. Instead, when he's told that the job of the police is to figure out who it was that killed Thomas and Martha Wayne, and his job is to basically take care of Bruce, he initially rejects it. Of course, we do learn that like Alfred has a daughter, but they don't really talk. So he's just kind of out there in the world doing his own thing. But ultimately, he does become the caretaker of Bruce. He does it grudgingly, but he does it anyway. The reason why is because the alternative is that Bruce Wayne would be put into the foster system. And this is a very peculiar situation here, and Alfred Pennyworth knows it. The reason why is twofold. Number one, the American foster system is pretty wild and pretty crazy, so who knows what kind of terrible circumstances he could end up in and what kind of path his life could take. In fact, there's a really good story called Batman War on Crime that doesn't really take the route of him going into the foster system, but it's actually Bruce Wayne exploring what his life could have been like had he not been born into extravagance and opulence and was just another dude out there whose parents were killed. The other reason why Alfred is hesitant about this is because of all the power and money that has been left with Bruce Wayne as what will become the head of Wayne Enterprises. If the wrong person adopts Bruce Wayne, they'll basically take advantage of that, right? They'll have him sign everything over to them, and then Bruce will just be shuffled off somewhere and that'll be it, or they might even kill him. And so because of that, Alfred ends up being the one to take care of him. And it's very, very tenuous and stressful in the beginning because Bruce doesn't want to eat anything. More so than that, Bruce doesn't know who Alfred is. And so when Alfred is telling him things like, you need to eat, you need to take care of this, that what happens is Bruce asks like, who even are you? And instead of telling him like, I'm a friend of your father's and we have military history together and all that kind of stuff, he just says, I'm your butler. Right? I'm the guy that basically is here to take care of you. And so following that, you jump back to the current age. And you do kind of get some stuff left out, right? So you don't really get the whole like Batman Year One like you saw from Frank Miller back in the day, or 0 Year from Scott Snyder during New 52, where you like see him training to become Batman. And a lot of it's because it's just not necessary. Batman's experience in learning how to fight and becoming incredibly stealthy and things like that, that's in the public consciousness. All comics are going to do is just give you differing depictions of how that unfolds. But you already know about it, I already know about it, there's no reason for them to go into it here. Instead, what we end up learning is that Alfred was the person that taught Bruce Wayne how to fight, that taught him how to operate stealthily. Now, again, this is a big difference between the Batman here and the Batman that you're used to. The Batman that we're used to in DC Comics is the guy who traveled around the world and learned the art of stealth and guile from things like the League of Assassins, who learned how to kill and how to fight from a multitude of different people, and more recently in Chip Zdarsky's run, learned how to kind of split his personality, so to speak, in such a way that he doesn't really feel morally encumbered by beating the tar out of a guy for jaywalking. But that's the Batman who learned how to become Batman. This one is a Batman who's really more in line with what would happen if like some highly trained mercenary ended up donning a bat suit, running around Gotham in the middle of the night, beating up criminals. It's a lot more realistic, and it's really, really cool. Not only that, Alfred doesn't really agree with what Bruce is doing, and not so much because of the fact that he's going out into Gotham and he's facing off against criminals, but because of the fact that he's not doing it very effectively, right? He's doing it in a pretty lazy way. And we'll circle back around to that here in a little while, because there is a fight that breaks out between these two, and a lot of this stuff really kind of comes to a head. But one of the things that Bruce does say is that his main driving force here is to find the person that killed his parents. But over the years, he's come to the conclusion that it wasn't just some random robbery, that it was a conspiracy by the current mayor of Gotham City to take out the competition. It was a political killing, is really what Bruce is saying here. But once this is all solved, the mayor's brought to justice, the person who committed the crime, if they're still alive, is brought to justice, that ultimately Bruce can give up this life and he can go back to having a normal life. And so what you get is this cool discussion where you have Alfred who says, first things first, you need a gun. Bruce, of course, says, no, we're not using guns. And the response of Alfred is, if you do this, you do it properly. You cannot fight a corrupt mayor and his goons with a tangled spool of wire, and you cannot rely on gadgets that don't work. The response of Bruce, then we'll find someone that can make better stuff. And so what you do is you transition to the other side of this story. The reason why is because Batman Earth 1 does follow Bruce Wayne over the course of this journey. What makes it so good is it's a world building story. So it also follows Commissioner Jim Gordon. Now, of course, Jim Gordon, the commissioner, everybody knows who he is, but you have Barbara Gordon, his daughter, who shows up here. Now, of course, a lot of the mythos is still the same. The wife of Commissioner Gordon is dead, so it's just himself and Barbara. And Barbara, it really operates the way a daughter in this circumstance would, which is to say, Jim Gordon's not taking care of himself, so she'll take care of Jim Gordon instead. So she brings him food and different things along those lines. But in the midst of it all, Jim Gordon is introduced to his new partner, Harvey Bullock. Now, here's the thing about Harvey Bullock in Batman Earth 1. If you're anything like me, you are going to love Harvey Bullock, but you're also going to hate him at the same time. He's just got a face you want to punch. You know what I mean? You ever seen a face like that? That's Harvey Bullock. When he's initially introduced, he's just got like this nickel slick smile, and we end up finding out that he actually hosted a TV show called Hollywood Detective. He hosted it for 5 seasons. The whole slogan was that no crime was unsolvable. So basically, he's a Hollywood cop. What's really interesting here is that if you ever saw LA Confidential, he's basically Kevin Spacey's character from that movie. But Jim Gordon, of course, doesn't like this guy. Not at all. And the reason why is because Jim Gordon sees Harvey Bullock less as an actual detective, which he is, right? He is a legitimate detective, but Jim Gordon sees him as a guy who showed up here just because of the fact that it's a headline. And that's why the conversation goes the way that it does, and Harvey Bullock's not really helping. But Harvey says, you'll see a biography of yours truly in the behind the scenes, but here are the bullet points. Born and raised in Los Angeles, spent 9 years working homicide for Hollywood PD, palm trees, beaches, girls. And even when Barbara's leaving, he kind of makes a little bit of a comment about, damn man, that girl is like super hot, having no idea that he's basically talking about Jim Gordon's wife. But Harvey Bullock says, I need a new challenge. Gotham is the most dangerous city in America. Every crime in Gotham is a potential headline. I like headlines. In fact, I'm going to tackle one case in particular that went cold years ago. The murders of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Solve that diamond in the rough. It's out of television and into film. Now, here is one thing that I will tell you about Harvey Bullock. By the time we get to the end of this story, this single case alone will totally reshape this guy and is going to screw him up in ways that he cannot even imagine. But switching back to Bruce Wayne, in an effort to find someone that can create better gadgets for him, he ends up going to visit Lucius Fox. Now, of course, most all of you guys have seen The Dark Knight and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, so you know about Lucius Fox and what he's capable of. There really isn't a whole lot of differentiation between like those movies and this. The only real difference is like the department that he worked for and why he was removed from that department. But the bigger point is that he is just as capable in technological advancement as anybody else is. And so Bruce literally sits him down and says, what I need is for you to start working on prosthetics for me that can basically survive the most harsh and enduring environments, right? Just blow after blow, day after day, they can withstand anything. And of course, Lucius Fox is kind of picking up on the fact that something's going on here, but ultimately they keep it to themselves. And the reason why is because Bruce Wayne agrees that if Lucius Fox is willing to help him, that he'll not only reinstate Lucius Fox to the previous position that he had, but he'll actually make sure that his whole prosthetic program gets all the funding that it needs in order to work. Because Lucius Fox needs that for his niece, because of the fact that she lost an arm in an accident. So this kind of sets the stage for him becoming more capable. Now, following that, you switch back over to Gordon and Bullock. And again, because of the fact that Harvey Bullock really is not familiar with the nature of Gotham City, as they're riding along, heading to a particular destination, that you end up having this scenario that you have Harvey Bullock and Jim who come across basically a woman being accosted in an alleyway. And Harvey Bullock's immediate response is to like go out there and do something. So right off the bat, what it shows is, yes, he's a Hollywood cop. Yes, he's the kind of cop that you probably wouldn't take seriously if you were a cop in like Philadelphia, New York, who'd been walking the beat for a number of years. You would just kind of see him as a fake guy, but he actually seems to have a genuine heart. He really wants to do the right thing. And it's one of these situations where Jim's like, that's not our problem, right? Not our circus, not our monkeys. But Harvey Bullock jumps out of the car and goes to attack the guy. Of course, this guy's name is Axe, only for Harvey Bullock to, of course, overpower this guy. And then we learn that Jim Gordon is on the take, that Axe is working for higher ups. Those guys give money to Axe, and that money is fed to Jim Gordon, who at this point is just a regular detective, and he keeps his mouth shut. He's corrupt. He's very, very corrupt. Now, one of the things that's cool about this is that in DC Comics, they kind of go back and forth on the idea of Jim Gordon being a corrupt cop. There have been stories where Jim Gordon was always an honest cop, and there were stories where Jim Gordon was on the take at one point in time. Jeff Johns, in writing this, kind of goes more with Jim Gordon being on the take. And we'll talk more about that here in a little bit, because again, it's one of the cooler elements of his character that really makes him wildly intriguing. But what Axe does is he tells Jim Gordon, teach your guy the ropes here, man. Make sure he understands what is going on. And he says, if you don't teach him that, there's going to be another quote unquote accident. Of course, alluding to the fact that like those who run the show had Jim Gordon's wife killed. But then you kind of have this moment where Jim Gordon lashes out at Harvey Bullock, because Harvey's just like, dude, what is going on here, man? Like, are you working with criminals? And Jim just keeps trying to rebuff it, but Harvey won't let it go. And the response of Jim is, do not lecture me from some fictional moral high horse as if you've come here for any other reason than publicity and self-promotion. As soon as you hit the same wall everyone else has, trying to solve the murders of the Waynes, you'll be on the first plane back to Los Angeles, and I will buy the ticket. Do not judge me, Bullock. you don't know me. Now, this can easily be dismissed as what's in effect an emotional outburst by Jim Gordon. And on some level it is. That's an accurate statement. It'd be foolish to deny that. But it's also the reality of Gotham City, that so often you have people that come from a place of privilege, that enter an environment full of people that have no privilege, but because of their inability to understand that environment and the idea that those without privilege do whatever it takes to survive, beg, borrow, steal, and kill, that these individuals with privilege have the ability to have a moral compass. They have the ability to decide not to do the wrong thing. And so this is all foreign to Harvey Bullock, whereas with Jim Gordon, it's just the way of life. It's how it always is, right? The allegory of Plato's cave. So it's really awesome how this whole thing ties together with these characters and the uniqueness that they represent. But picking back up with Bruce Wayne, what we end up finding out is the mayor is throwing on some kind of great big huge event, right? This sort of party type thing that's going on. Bruce is showing up here because he's hunting for a guy named Jacob Weaver. Jacob Weaver is closely associated with the mayor of Gotham City. And so it makes the most sense if he's going to find Jacob Weaver that he will find him here. Now, of course, he's hunting for Weaver because Weaver had in his possession the lighter of Thomas Wayne, which was given to Thomas by Bruce right before he died. So the idea is that if Jacob's holding onto this lighter, he has some kind of information about the death of Thomas and Martha that the general public simply doesn't know. So Bruce intends to beat the tar out of this guy until he gets the information that he needs. And what happens is that during this celebration of Gotham City, that of course Bruce Wayne makes himself publicly available, right, showing his face out there. The press goes absolutely nuts. But we also end up finding out the current mayor of Gotham City is Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. And it's such a cool twist because the whole time that I was going through this, I was like, who's the mayor? Like, who's the guy that like they keep talking about? Obviously, it's one of Batman's normal villains who's going to be the mayor, but which one is it going to be? So it's really cool that we got to see it as Cobblepot because truth to tell, if any of Batman's villains was going to become a corrupt mayor, it would be the Penguin. He's like the cleanest of the criminals, right? Like the most closely tied to what you and I would consider to be organized crime. And so what happens is that in this moment when Bruce Wayne's here, that of course you have a lot of glad handing that goes on, and Oswald Cobblepot wants to be seen with the city's richest man who heads the world's richest company. At least I think it's the world's richest company, but like he wants to be seen with him and associated with him. And so he just kind of says, hey man, go in there, have fun, have a great time, right? There's plenty of girls or boys inside, whatever your thing is. But then you switch over to some girl, right? Who's just in some location. We'll find out what this location is, but it's a room that just says happy birthday on it. It's kind of nuts here. This girl ends up just meeting a door that opens up where this guy comes in, gives her a cake, right? She's like, my name is not Amanda. And he's like, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? She wants to be let out. He doesn't, and he kills her on the spot. And so jumping back to the party with Bruce himself, that again, you also have Jim Gordon as well as Harvey Bullock. And so all these rows are seemingly kind of coming together. Harvey Bullock rubs Bruce Wayne the wrong way. He's just like, hey man, I got some questions for you, right? Like, you know, you're Bruce Wayne and you got all that kind of stuff. Can you help me out with a case that I'm working on? And Bruce is just kind of rubbed wrong, right? He's like, I mean, you're the guy from TV. Right? And Harvey's like, yeah, you know, like no crime's unsolvable. He's like, they just canceled that show, didn't they? I guess you found a crime that wasn't solvable. I don't know. But it's really him just kind of pissing the guy off so he'll go away. And then of course, Bruce notices Jacob Weaver walking away and going somewhere. And then Bruce Wayne goes up to the roof to follow him. And of course, Jacob Weaver is just surrounded by henchmen. Not that he knew Bruce was coming. It was just kind of security, right? Making sure that things were sorted out. Bruce is able to overcome them. I wouldn't say quite readily, but he's able to overcome them in his own way. But it's one of the coolest things here. He's not like this immutable, unbeatable guy, right? Where like every move is countered with perfect precision and he lands his blows in just the right way that it takes each one of these guys out. He's just kind of a brawler to a degree. Again, tapping into that idea that this is a Batman who's more of a mercenary as opposed to just a traditional superhero with perfect fighting skill. And so ultimately, he's just sort of caught unawares when a call is made about all this chaos taking place on the rooftop. Cops show up, they start shooting all over the place. They actually shoot at his head. The bullet does ricochet off, it doesn't really kill him, but he falls off the rooftop, fires off his grappling hook, and that basically allows him to essentially fly into the party, smash on the table, throw down a gas bomb, and escape. But he escapes by the skin of his teeth. I mean, he like shows up in the car with Alfred Pennyworth, all bloody, right? That just little flimsy piece of metal on his head was the only thing that just saved him from certain death. But there's a lot of questions that are being asked here by guys like Oswald Cobblepot. Who is this guy, right? What in the world is going on here? Not only that, the guy who killed the girl in the room that had the sign happy birthday, that guy was basically just a henchman of the mayor. But the way in which they pay him is providing him with victims. And one of those victims that they're going to give him is Jacob Weaver. They're literally going to have him killed. It's just a way to snuff out this concern. And so what you do is you jump back to Bruce Wayne and to Alfred Pennyworth, and Bruce reveals that, of course, he has the lighter and that he asked Alfred Pennyworth, where did you get this? Because Alfred was the one who picked the lighter up. And there's this kind of conversation that goes back and forth where Alfred tells him, like, you're not ready for this life. You think you're ready for this life, but you're not ready for this life. Bruce is adamant about the fact that he is, and a fight breaks out between the two of them. And what Alfred says is like, you have never been in a war. I have. You are emotional, you're sloppy, and you're soft. You're not willing to do whatever needs to be done in order to achieve your goal, to basically sink down to the level of Gotham City. You believe that in taking the moral high road, that somehow you can still come out on top. But of course, we know that he can. And the best way he demonstrates this is by kicking Alfred Pennyworth's leg out from under him, literally kicking out his peg leg. It's kind of nuts. It's kind of wild, pretty intense, but still. All these different roads start to come to a head when Harvey Bullock ends up traveling to the information and records department of the Gotham City Police Department. And he ends up signing out some documents on the deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne, looking to investigate this case. What ends up happening is that somebody that Oswald Cobblepot has on the inside reports back that somebody has taken this documentation. But because of the fact that Harvey Bullock's name has not really been put into the system yet, he doesn't have the authority to sign anything out. So he uses Jim Gordon's name instead. This leads to Axe making a phone call to Jim Gordon. You were signing out documents again, looking into the deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne. You were told to stop doing that. If you keep doing that, we're going to destroy everything that you know and love. And we're going to start with your daughter. So literally they say, we have your daughter and we're going to kill her. And so this leads to Jim Gordon freaking out on Harvey Bullock, like, you have no idea what you've done and you don't know what you're doing here. You're showing up here with this idea that you can somehow bring your nickel slick smile and your Hollywood method of solving crimes to Gotham City and somehow make it better. It doesn't work that way. And so the response of Harvey is, okay, fine, then we'll do it your way, right? If what this really takes is a harder hand, if it really takes us doing whatever it is that we need to do, then let's go find Axe. So what they do is they locate this guy who's basically just kind of harassing a couple of women, and they crack him over the head with a baseball bat. And it's like, he looks up at these two guys and he's like, so what is this? Supposed to be like a good cop, bad cop type thing? And Harvey's just like, no, man, this is Gotham City, right? It's bad cop, bad cop. So they help Axe understand his place in the bigger picture with a baseball bat and a crowbar. They get to work on this guy. Not only that, in Batman's own investigation, he finds rust on the ground, which leads him to Arkham Asylum. And so what these roads do is they all come together. That Barbara Gordon is being held here, and she's being held there by the birthday killer, who just shows up and kills people. That's just his whole shtick. It's this whole thing. What his motivation is, we don't fully know, but these paths all come together when they all start going through Arkham Asylum. Batman is there alongside Harvey and Jim Gordon. Now with Jim Gordon being there, of course, he's the first one to run into Batman, but Arkham Asylum is effectively a giant maze, so it's so incredibly easy to get lost in this place. Jim Gordon, one of the other things that's interesting here is he doesn't really have a friendly relationship with Batman. He's aware of him, but he doesn't really trust him and doesn't really know him in any meaningful way. And so he actually goes to attack him. Now, of course, Batman's able to disarm him quite readily, but this is when you start to follow what was going on with Harvey Bullock. Because what happens here is Barbara Gordon starts screaming out, right? Stay away from me, get away from me, that kind of thing, to the birthday killer. She stabs him in the leg with a piece of wood and is just trying to escape. Batman ends up realizing where her voice is coming from. It's on the other side of this wall. He just smashes through this wall, right? And immediately goes after the birthday killer. Harvey Bullock is over there somewhere, right? Might as well be on the moon as far as they're concerned, with the whole place being a maze. Jim Gordon shows up and just starts shooting at the birthday killer. And of course, Batman attacks this guy, but because he's just so massive and bulky, the best they can do is just hold him off. Now, of course, ultimately Harvey Bullock's able to find them. Harvey Bullock jumps in as best he can, but then he's grabbed by the birthday killer and just thrown to the ground and sent crashing down into the basement. And this is where he gets screwed up, because what he does is when he literally looks around him, he finds this place is full of bodies of young girls, all of whom had been killed by the birthday killer. They were just laying down there, dumped unceremoniously. But then you also have this cool moment with Batman where he kind of redeems himself indirectly in the eyes of Alfred Pennyworth, where Alfred was saying things like his cape are stupid, they're not real meaningful weapons or anything like that. Batman uses it to subdue and actually kill the birthday killer, or at least seemingly kill the birthday killer, right? Takes this guy out. So yes, everything he has at his disposal can and will be used as a weapon. He doesn't have to resort to guns. And it's actually beneficial for him because most people expect guns. Most people have the same mentality that Alfred Pennyworth does. A cape, really? That's what you're bringing to this fight? So it is awesome. But the other part of this is that because Harvey's never seen anything like this before, he's just like, what is going on? What did I just see? And the response of Batman is real evil. That's what happens here in Gotham City. That's what you came to when you left Los Angeles. This is the way the world works out here. And so following that, of course, Batman ultimately tracks down Oswald Cobblepot, right? And just starts taking out all his henchmen. And it's just so you're the one that had my parents killed, right? And just takes the fight directly to him. Now, here's the cool revelation that happens. Oswald Cobblepot openly admits, after discovering that Batman is Bruce Wayne, literally pummeling him a bit and then lifting the mask off of his face, he's like, yeah, I plan to have your parents killed, right? When you were in the movie theater as a kid and the power shut down, that was done by Jacob Weaver. And the idea was that you guys were going to leave the theater and then you were going to be killed by Jacob Weaver, but somebody else got to you first. Somebody else killed your parents for me. Honestly, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it was fortuitous and it worked out for me, so I just rolled with it. So Batman's killer had nothing to do with the plan of Cobblepot to take out the competition. But what this does is it sticks with Bruce Wayne. The reason being because Oswald Cobblepot, as he's about to deal this killing blow, after just stabbing Batman, right? He's about to stab him through the neck with this umbrella and kill him again, is he says there's only two kinds of people in Gotham City: predators and prey. But then this voice comes out of nowhere and says, there's a third kind that you're forgetting about, Cobblepot: survivors. And it's Alfred Pennyworth with a 12-gauge shotgun. And what does he do? He blows a hole through this guy, blasts him out the window, and kills Cobblepot on the spot. So that's the end of him. And so there's a couple things that go on as we get to the end of the story. Number one, Jim Gordon refuses to bend the knee to criminals, right? He just brings these guys in. He's like, I'm not on the take anymore. I'm not a coward. I'm not standing by idly as Gotham City is just torn apart at the underbelly by its criminal underworld. That's never gonna happen anymore. Barbara Gordon kind of toys around with the idea of a Batgirl costume while buying books about judo, karate, different things like that, learning about the Special Air Service, the British SAS, basically fighting styles and things along those lines. Harvey Bullock just goes and gets the strongest drink he possibly can because what he's seen has basically just destroyed him on the inside. And then Bruce Wayne reconciles with Alfred Pennyworth and saying that he's never going to stop. Right? That's never going to happen. He's going to stay Batman. And so Alfred says, then if that's the case, then you cannot be a guy who's just running around in the streets pummeling people. You cannot be seen as a regular dude. You have to be seen as something bigger. The idea of you is what puts fear in the hearts and minds of people, not you yourself. We have to turn you into a legend. But the last thing we get here is the question, who is Batman? And this question is being asked by none other than the Riddler. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Let me know what you think down in the comments section about Batman Earth 1. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.